Hey everybody, welcome back to another review. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. In preparation for the new Christopher Nolan film coming out, Oppenheimer, I figured I would check out one of his films that I hadn't seen. One of which that a lot of people seem to really enjoy, and that is Memento, which was written and directed by Christopher Nolan, released in 2001, and excuse me. Um, and stars Guy Pearce as a man suffering from short-term memory loss, and um, he is a investigator, at least as the film represents it initially, um, and he is looking for the killer for his wife, who was murdered and raped. And the film starts with him supposedly killing the supposed killer. And what the film then does is the film decides uh, to to start supposedly at the end and then tell the story backwards. So telling us how did we get here, and doing that every step of the way, by means of uh, each time that he forgets his memory. So we go back one stop, and then we go back one stop, and then we go back one stop, and um, eventually we get back to the beginning, and you realize that perhaps there are things that were told to us that weren't necessarily, true, and you realize by a certain point that the narrator is potentially very unreliable. So it's a psychological endeavor, and obviously with Nolan and how the film is approaching its ideas, there's a great deal of a great emphasis on time being used here. I mean, Nolan, obviously being Nolan, is very very influenced by the concept of time. It's evident throughout pretty much all his films. Um, and what I think Memento does really well is that it lands some very interesting twists and turns, especially towards the end, and it does create some interesting developments for the characters at play, namely with Guy Pearce. Um, but where I struggled with Memento was a lot to do with its general purpose of how this technique is being used. Because when we get to the end, instead of it feeling like a reward, it almost feels like it's trying to justify the whole experience. Because, as I said, the film is playing on a unique approach where everything is being told backwards, um, and initially it seems interesting because you're asking yourself, okay, well, there has to be a purpose here with him, you know, going backwards, and us revisiting certain events and realizing that this is how it gets to this place and that place. There has to be a reason for all that, and the reason for all of this doesn't really occur until the very, very end. And what you get for a big portion of the time is someone flexing a technique versus actually presenting a real narrative purpose. There's like a good hour in this where I was just asking myself, okay, why am I, like, I was really actually buying into the initial, I was really bought into the idea that maybe it happened the way it happened, you know, um, and you might think that, oh wow, that's actually creating, that's the point, that's creating intrigue, but it actually did the opposite for me. It actually so solidly created irritation, because the film doesn't give a lot of suggestions to what is potentially happening. It kind of lets you just sit within this circumstance, and um, like you just it doesn't feel earned, as it feels more like a compensation, or a way to justify this technique. Because I question the structure of the film. It doesn't feel like, when I got to the end, I just felt like, okay, cool, but did I have to go through this this approach in order to get to that answer. Like I kind of question the whole approach to it really, um, because as I said, there's like a good hour in this where I just felt kind of bored because of just the repetition of said technique and the redundance of it, and just the the real lack of cleverness of presenting such technique, because it's just you pick up on it after the first few times. It's like it starts however the scene starts is how the second scene will end, and it's just like it happens. You're like, and it's just, it just gets so redundant and so repetitive and I just found myself kind of tuning out. And it doesn't, and even though those twists are present, I I don't believe that the film or the story itself is that rich or detailed or as complicated as other Nolan films are. It's a film that I feel like is just more technically sound than it is narratively. It's a film that's more of an exercise in techniques than it is in storytelling. Um, because if you were to remove that technique, it's not really that. Like, I would actually find it more interesting if we knew how things actually were. I think that it would have made it for more. I think it would have made it more interesting. But the fact of it being Nolan, it has to be done a certain way. Um, I just feel like more cleverness and more, um, I guess, just more awareness. Give a little bit more suggestions to the viewer as we're going within this repetitive, structure. I just wish that there was a little bit more suggestions as to how things might conclude, because when things do conclude, I don't feel a sense of satisfaction, and I just feel more like confused, because I didn't see how we built up to that point. Like I said, it feels more like the film's justifying itself and more trying to compensate for a lack of narrative interest. Um, so it's a bit frustrating. It's not, it's not as as it's not as interesting as his other work that would come later, like Interstellar. Like, even though Tenet is overly complicated, I still think that there is something of a through line and that there is a purpose at the center of it. This just feels, for the most part, like I said, yeah, it has a interesting end, but the journey to that end just feels rather aimless and it feels rather purposeless. And I understand that is the point when it's all said and done, but as the viewer, I have to feel involved in order to feel in order to see to see the vision play out and to see why things are going the way they are. And I just wasn't. I didn't find myself that involved. I just found myself questioning why things are just going at this momentum. Why is everything having to play to this technique, and why is the technique not that interesting? Because that's the thing about all Nolan films, is that there's always something of a technique, or something of a visual thing that he implements into each of his work. Whether that being like Tenet, where the two cars are reversing, or Inception, where everything is flipping around and all that, or with Interstellar, where it's like more or less all about the planets and all about these orbs, like there's always something like that. And with the other films, it feels like there was more of a purpose to why they exist. With here, it's just more of a technical reason more than a narrative reason. So I really question the foundation of it. I think that there's a better way to have executed things, because ultimately I just felt very uninvolved. Not until the end occurs that I think, oh, the story finally kicked in. Because for a big chunk of my time, I just found myself just rather irritated and not really that involved. Because every time I was just like, all right, here we go again with the same technique again. All right, and boom, and we're back, and boom, and we're back, and boom, and we're back. Like it's just, it just does the same stuff. And for other people, they'll explain it by saying, well, that plays with the character. I get why, but it did not that it's not how I took it. It's just I just I just found it to be more irritating than fascinating. So it is, I like on paper, if you were to pitch it to me, I think it'd be interesting, but I think that it would have to have the right execution for me to be satisfied. And I just think that with this, it just wasn't the right approach. I think that it's more technically sound than it is narratively, and it's more interested in what it can do technically than what it can do narratively, because it's pretty hollow. I mean, until that twist occurs, you're not really that involved, because you're asking yourself why. Why do I feel the need to go see who Carrie is? Why do I need to see these things play out? Why is this important? And then they give you the answer, and it's just like, cool, but was that really what you were building up to? Like that. Like I'm just questioning. The I'm just questioning like the journey itself, because it just doesn't feel like it was properly. It wasn't built to go that way. It just feels again like someone just went, okay, well, we need to end this somehow. Like that's kind of how I felt like things went, and I wish that wasn't the case. I wish it felt more. And knowing Nolan, I know that everything was planned out, and I know that everything was thought out in a certain way. But this is really the first time for me where I just went, I don't believe that Memento was properly thought out. It just feels like someone just went, let's try this out, technically speaking, let's try this out, let's get all experimental. And then someone asked, well, okay, we need to end this story somehow. And then he just goes, well, let's just say it's all in his head, Like, I don't know. It just, it didn't click with me as much as it did for other people. So that's my thoughts on Memento. I found it to be fairly frustrating. Again, it earns its twist. Like the twists themselves are interesting, and I think it has a nice visual look to it. Like it has a nice sharp look to it. I like the score. It's nicely tempered. Some good performances. Like it has some good stuff there, but I just found myself. I just found the technical abilities that it possesses, the technicalities, to be more of an excuse than an understanding approach. So, but that's my thoughts on Memento. You guys let me know your thoughts on Memento if you guys saw it. And yeah, so that's gonna be it for me, guys. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be heading off into day 5. Yeah, day 5. So 4 films down, 3 more to go. So hope you guys enjoyed this review. And that's it for me, guys. Thank you guys for watching. And yeah, until then, guys, I will catch you guys in the next video. Sorry if I just seem a little tired, just going on midnight. So hopefully my thoughts were made clear. But until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.